episode 44, I think, of Cinema Curse. This is the water, and this is the well, and this is the 11th edition of Twin Peaks Club, and this is the one where we talk about The Return, part 6, 7, 8, and also 9. I am your Wicked Game Master. It's just the way that it's sectioned out. I'm your Wicked Game Master, Connor Lloyd Crews, and I am joined here today by Bri Robert.
Hey guys, how are you?
Scott Heaton.
What's going on, guys?
And Jason Steele.
Hello.
I want to thank Marina Sakamoto and her band Shunkin for the use of their song Curse off the EP She Nods for our opening. It's been 505 days since the strike-in and the AMPTP still sucks. How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Hanging in there, you know?
Yeah, doing okay. Not too bad.
I'm going to not overshare in a public forum and say I'm doing great. But let's...
Hey, that's the way to rock through life. Yeah, you just rock through that, right?
But yeah, let's get this shit started. We only got 4 episodes, and honestly, like, it's funny, 8 is the big episode, but it's also like the least amount of notes I've ever taken for an episode of Twin Peaks, because there's not really like a lot that happens. It's more like it's a lot of vibes. I mean, a lot happens.
Weird notes, just like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many lines you gotta write about all the flashing colors and the smoke and stuff?
Yeah, there's so many. There's like 10 minutes of it that is just like flashing colors and shit. But in part 6, we get this telephone pole returns with the numbers 3, 2, 4, 8, 1, 0, and 6. We saw that's in Fire Walk with Me, right? I think it was when it shows up because Harry Dean sees it there, I think. But most of this episode is split between Vegas and Twin Peaks. In Vegas, we get that scene outside where he's like attracted to the badge, and I love that that bit where Janie E comes up to get him, and the guard is like, he seems a little disoriented, and she's just like, that's on a good day. Dougie goes home and shares some chips with his son in bed. He likes his son's clap-based cowboy light. And then we get the Jade Gift 2 rides exchange, which I love. And some criminals call Janie E to try to gets to pressure her for the money. And she has a great line. It's hard. She has a lot of great lines in this episode. It's hard enough to get that kind of money without broken legs. And then Dougie gets a message from Mike. They asked to wake up, don't die, and he gets some help with the case files from his same weird visions that were he was seeing. Kind of, it's like not exactly the same, but it's pretty similar to what he was seeing above the slot machines, and kind of similar to when he saw the flash on Tom Sizemore to indicate he was lying. Something left over is giving him this ability to see things that other people can't. Dougie's car gets towed, finally. We get introduced to the little Ike the Spike. I wrote him down as the little guy. He gets an envelope from the Utz guy from Mad Men because he's been hired to kill Dougie, and also that lady from a couple episodes ago who fucked up killing Dougie in the first place. At work, Bushnell hates all the scribbles Dougie has done until he realizes it actually might mean something, and that's a really funny scene where we still have like no idea what any of it means, but you see him being like, oh, and he's like, you've certainly given me a lot to think about.
This whole Dougie plot line is like just like a whole plot line about how people are just excusing, like, it's fascinating to see how far they'll excuse like not stupidity, but just like, oh, this obviously insane scribbling really means something. Thank you so much. And they just like keep pushing it beyond what you think it could last, but it's still going.
Yeah. And I think it works too because you just know that like there's something still inside of Dougie that is Cooper that is so good and so positive that like even in his most like fucked up like most out of it state, he can't help. He's like somewhere between like Mr. Magoo and a fairy godparent or something, like essentially how he like operates this season. He sort of stumbles around and makes everyone's lives way better. And that's the whole bit.
He's kind of like an elemental spirit in that regard, but of goodness, where it's just like even without his intention, it's like that just that the good feelings just follow him.
Yeah,
he's Mr. Jackpot.
He is indeed
Mr. Jackpot.
Mr. Jackpot. I couldn't find the full. I love in this episode, like I legit think it would be a good audition piece for someone. The speech that Naomi Watts as Janie E gives to the two criminals when she just like chews them out for like probably a page or two of dialogue. And then and then we see Ike the Spike kill that lady, but he bends his pick, which is sad.
It's very sad.
We have a brief moment with the FBI in this episode with Albert, the fuck Gene Kelly, you motherfucker. And
that was a great line.
And getting a single shot of Diane, and because I always forget. It's funny rewatching it. There are certain things that I'm like forgetting how long they take to really bring into the show. Like it's crazy to me that we still haven't really gotten much, even through these episodes, Mitchum Brothers stuff yet. Like
I was just thinking this. I was thinking that same thing because they feel like they're a big chunk, but like because we've done so much other Vegas stuff, I guess it's just it's weird. Yeah,
it's got to be like the next episode.
So I've not seen it. So like you're right. Like I was like, oh, we've gotten a bunch of them, but but also I've always been wondering like, what does that have to do with anything? I'm sure it's coming, but like for a while, it's just like. Oh yeah, they're still around. One guy owns a refinery right now. He's getting high on his own supply.
That's pretty much this season in a lot of ways, with just so many things that, like, when you finally figure out some of the crossings over, you're like, oh, we'll get to this or that, yeah.
Oh well, you're talking about the Horn brothers, Scott. I'm talking about the Mitchum brothers. Those are new characters.
Oh yeah, Scott. These are amazing.
You've barely seen them. It's it was who is it again? It's whichever
Casino
of the Belushis is alive.
It's Jim Belushi.
Okay, I always forget.
Jim, it's Jim.
I was gonna say, I mean, it couldn't have been the dead guy, but then again, a lot of people on this show have died since. So
a lot of people have
for sure
died during the making of it, and then died like immediately after, and also in the preceding 5 years or so, 8 years, I guess at this point. Jesus Christ. But
Michael Cera and Naomi Watts are the only two still kicking. Everyone else on this show.
I'll say the Horn Brothers stuff. I mean, the Jerry stuff, it like kind of connects, but it's just like that shit's just funny.
Yeah, it's way for them to put him really in. That's the thing.
And we'll get to the Ben stuff because you actually start getting some Ben stuff in these episodes.
Yeah.
Back in Twin Peaks, B gets Balthazar Getty. And the Devil Kid, I'm calling him the Devil Kid. Is his name Richard? I think. Do y'all know who I'm talking about? The guy, the guy who runs over. I'm just gonna call him Devil Kid because he's a fucking asshole. They're doing a drug deal and a bunch of weird shit that pisses the kid off. And we start intercutting back to Fat Trout Trailer Park. Harry Dean Stanton back at the diner. We importantly reestablish the idea that Norma makes good pies, which I'm really glad that they hit. Harry Dean sees a kid in the park that gets run over by the Devil Kid, and pie-loving lady sees him fleeing the scene. And Harry Dean sees something float up from the kid, and that's when we get the telephone pole. Devil Kid tries to clean his car, and we get a couple little beats back at the sheriff's department. Mainly, we finally get the payoff to what Hawk was supposed to discover, which is that we find out the contents in the next episode, but through happenstance and a coin and a like Native American branded like metal fastener or bathroom stall door company or something, leads Hawk to like look into the door of the bathroom stall and find several pages of Laura Palmer's diary, which they do explain how they got there in the next episode, and I didn't write that down because it's not that interesting.
Like they were there.
They were just there. They were like, oh yeah, well, Leland must have come up during this one time and he was worried. And it's like, it's fine. Like I don't like y'all could have like, you know what? You could have actually cut this scene.
It's plot hole cover. Right.
Yeah, Hawk breaking down the door was just like ripping it apart was all we needed. Just go. That's action.
And we also established that Frank Truman has like, there's some tragedy with him and his wife. Like his wife has some sort of issue or something. And we have an ending at the Roadhouse, our typical ending. And that's part 6. Whoa, turned off my video. Didn't mean to do that. I meant to change my background to this very good picture for part 7.
Before we move on, I do want to say that like child death scene is like particularly brutal and effective.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Like I think about that scene a lot when I think about The Return, just because I feel like it's like a great distillation of like the vibe of the series in general, of the contrast between the callous evil of the devil kid, and then the kindness of the old man just sitting there with the woman, allowing her to grieve.
Yeah, and it's also just so totally one of the, especially I just rewatched Fateful Findings. It's so totally one of those things, not to compare and contrast Twin Peaks to Return with Neil Breen again, but it's one of those scenes that feels like it could almost exactly be out of it, but there's like just something, it's like a weird wavelength thing where it's like everything feels so intentional as opposed to like scrambling for meaning, you know what I mean, as opposed to just like profoundly imbuing it with meaning.
Sorry, I had to step away for a moment. Are you speaking of the scene with them mopping?
No,
no, we're not to that yet.
That's the next episode. Speaking of part 7, we open back in Twin Peaks with that great Jerry scene where he's like, "I think I'm high," in the middle of the woods. Truman reads the diary pages. It details the bit with Annie from Fire Walk with Me, where which I can't remember if that's in the movie itself or if that's in the movie. It's not just in the missing pieces, where she wakes up and Annie is in her bed and is like, I'm stuck in the lodge with the good Cooper. Andy is on the trail of the Devil Kid's truck. I do like that they've kind of like, Andy seems a little more competent now. Like when we were talking about this when we were watching, how it's like you could see a version in the old show of Andy where when the guy doesn't show up for the meeting, he calls Sheriff Truman and he's like, "Sheriff Truman, he didn't show up for the meeting. Like, why did he do that?" You know?
Yeah. And like almost hurt by it. Like, I didn't understand. Yeah. We set the meeting and he didn't show up.
And then Frank Skypes Doc Hayward from his awesome desk computer.
That is the best ever.
This is another death on the show. Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
That's self-inflicted.
Yeah. How did you miss it, Skype? No.
You were
I think we
literally
immediately started a
synonymous.
conversation going, how did they not capitalize?
And we get kind of a mention, which kind of sets up some stuff, in the season, that Doc talks about seeing Cooper, who we know would have been Mr. C at the time, visiting the hospital, potentially to see Audrey Horne in a coma post end of season 2 bank explosion. the FBI, the Pentagon ladies in Buckhorn, and something's whack about the body. We get Whistling Gordon in his room. They go to see Diane together in a funny scene where she doesn't have all the things that she doesn't have coffee and cigarettes, even though she's drinking coffee and cigarettes, because she's fucking with them. They all head to prison. We find out Mr. C's prints are backwards, and Diane doesn't know who Mr. C is in a very chilling sequence. And I forget if this gets clarified exactly what happened, but there's like a night where stuff happened, and like I feel like even without clarification that maybe or maybe doesn't happen, it's like clear some sort of like sexual violence went down. I think at least like is the implication for sure. And which makes sense. I mean, that's like Bob's MO essentially. And Mr. C needs to talk to the warden about a strawberry because he's blackmailing him. And yeah. Sorry, I just skipped over the
sweeping.
The implication.
The sweeping.
Oh, we'll get to the sweeping.
We're not at the sweeping yet.
We're not at the sweeping yet. I have the sweeping in my notes for sure.
Because I have a controversial opinion about the sweeping scene.
You have a controversial opinion about the sweeping
Yeah, well, we'll get
scene.
to it. We'll get to it.
In Vegas, police are at Dougie's office to talk about his car. I love the way Naomi Watts is like, it's a terrible car, over and over again. And then Ike the Spike tries to kill Dougie, but Coop's instincts kick in. And this is my controversial opinion. I think he could have gotten a better like punch sound effect for that scene. I don't like how stock the punch sound effects sound in that sequence. But yeah. Back in Twin Peaks, Ben and Beverly, a new character played by Ashley Judd, hear a noise up at the Great Northern. Something in the walls. I've always wondered, is this supposed to be like Josie, or it kind of connects maybe to something that happens in the later season? I remember when I first watched it, I was like, oh, is it Josie? I just want them to acknowledge that Josie is in the walls. They get Dale's old key and talk about Laura Palmer. And Scott, remember you predicted dialogue when we were watching, because Ashley Judd's like, who's Laura Palmer? And Scott was like, it's a long story. And then that's exactly what Ben said.
Yeah.
Bev goes home to her husband, and in a scene that kind of freaked me out because I have weird emotional abandonment issues. We're just gonna skip over that. And then we get to the peanut sweeping scene where we cut to the roadhouse and we see someone sweeping the peanuts for several minutes. I love it. I assume your controversial take, Jason, is that you don't like it.
No. I think it should be longer.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't finish sweeping.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
It ends before he's done. I think it should be longer.
I think it's so good because they place it so close to the end of the episode, and at this point we've gotten so used to the idea of cutting to the roadhouse.
Yeah.
But we also understand that it's going to sometimes end differently. So, and Scott, I think you said it was exactly the same. Like it happened to me the first time watching it. I think you felt the same way watching it this time. Maybe not quite as much because you knew about it.
I assumed as he was sweeping, suddenly we were going to see starring Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, you think like the show has like trained you, and then whenever like the phone calls and we cut to a close up of like another French Canadian brother, you're just like, whoa.
Well, also it's like, okay, so do we have like 40 minutes to go? Another hour and 20?
Yeah.
We don't. We have like a minute left. there's like one scene basically, because we see the jailbreak basically, and we end once more back in Twin Peaks, and this one is at the diner. And this one is dedicated to Warren Frost, Doc Hayward, who passed away. Who was one of the few, like, wondering how he got that role. He's a nepo father. But
I do wonder if that sweeping scene was filmed with the intention of having it as it was, or with the intention of having it as a credits thing. But whatever the original intention was, I do think it's well placed. I like that scene.
David Lynch talked about how he wished his main regret in the series is he wanted to be the one doing the sweeping, and he didn't do it because he was like worried it would confuse people. But he said like afterwards he was like, I should have just done it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. There's one spot that doesn't get swept up.
It's
It
happening
bothers
off
me.
screen. But let's move on to the big one, and by the big one I mean the short one compared to my notes. Part 8. I've got something from the very end behind me.
Got a light.
Yeah, this is Twin Peaks' bottle episode. It's their flashback episode where they're like, you wanted to know the origin of Bob? Here you go. and it's a bunch of just images for a lot of it. It starts off, kind of like relatively normal. Ray and Mr. C are on the road. Ray has some numbers. See a shot, but the woodsman emerged to fuck around with the body. Like they're just like touching him and stuff, and kind of like digging into his chest. The Bob ball emerges, and Ray understandably gets out of there, and then we cut to the Nine Inch Nails.
Yes.
Playing at what seems like a small venue for them.
Tiny.
But I don't. Do you know about that, Jason? About the name of the band thing, where in the credits because the band is Nine Inch Nails, and they're called in the show. The guy who announces them, who he doesn't announce anyone else for the most part. I think he does in one other episode. He calls them the Nine Inch Nails, and then in the credits they're listed as in quotes the and then Nine Inch Nails, which is really funny. Yeah. And then we see Mr. C coming back to life before cutting to black and white. July 16th, 1945, White Sands, New Mexico. And we get a nuclear bomb goes off, and we go into it forever. And we see the convenience store and the woodsman, and something else emerges from it, the Bob ball. Essentially implying that the like nuclear tests ripped open something in reality that allowed Bob to come into our dimension in some form. I mean, there's probably different ways to phrase that. Essentially, maybe it created it and didn't rip the hole. Who knows exactly? But something about that enormous, trauma essentially on the world.
It was an evil unleashed upon the world.
Yeah.
Greater evil than even we realized.
Mm-hmm. And before Oppenheimer too. So why don't you go get fucked, Nolan? And
I'm glad I saw Oppenheimer before I saw episode 8, because otherwise I would have been sitting there going like, this is shit the entire time.
Yeah.
So you're lucky, Nolan.
But we also get like the weird gold ball is in there, which I don't know. Is that supposed to also be Bob or like a part of Bob? I don't know. Any theories? Not the lorb. We haven't got to there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the little gold ball.
There's a lot of orbs in this show.
It's a very orb based.
Yeah, I feel like all of the major players and entities like probably have an orb version, whether or not we see it.
Yeah.
Like, there's the Dougie orb, there's the lorb as you mentioned. Bob comes from an orb. It's everyone. There's an orb base version of everyone.
Bob.
There was errors. There's error orbs, I think, because things didn't work out the way they should have. It's a mess.
Bob is Robert. Rob, you can switch the O and the R around. It's Orb. Think about that.
I now have for the first time ever.
And then we cut to, I think, what's supposed to be the White Lodge. An alarm goes off, and the giant, I know he has like 2 other names, but I'm just going to call him the giant. I'm just going to read this sentence straight. An alarm goes off, and the giant heads to a theater to put a golden lorb into a doohickey to send her to Earth. Which is what happens.
Yeah. That's I think that's what it says in the script, probably.
Yeah, that's the entire thing.
Yeah, like we'll figure it out. You know?
I loved this level in Myst, even though it took me forever. It kind of implies that Laura's whole existence was almost like a trap, in a way. That this is almost like a greater thing, that she was sent down either to fight or catch him or stop him or whatever. What do you guys think about that?
I always took it as like the nuclear blast that unleashed through the mother, like allowed to bring Bob into this world, was like the nuclear blast is for David Lynch a point in which the balance of good and evil in the world is like permanently altered in the favor of evil. And so the Laura Orb for me feels like an attempt to right that balance. Like the balance has been shifted in one way, and so it has to be shifted in the other way. And the Laura Orb is the response to that.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I don't know if it's specifically a trap, but I do think that that's like very clearly specifically a response to the Bob Orb. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I took it. That like now that evilness has been released to the world, they have to release this goodness into the world. Yeah. You kind of put it like when we were watching it, how like now that Bob's escaped, it was like the giant had issued Laura protocol. It was just like,
Totally.
Yeah.
That was a great sequence though. It was so good.
There's some interesting like very blatant symbolic stuff there too, with like the woman with the sparkly dress, and like I think given the like theater setup that they're in, she has a dress that is very reminiscent of like the dots on like celluloid film and stuff. And when she's walking, the light from the projector is specifically like trained on her the entire time. And so I don't know what that means in terms of deeper meaning from that, but there is a lot of stuff like that where it's like and
a bunch of like Wizard of Oz kind of vibe, like as he always likes to do. But I felt like these influences of his resonate a lot through these sequences too.
Yeah. So there is a lot of like interesting like things like that to pick out in these scenes.
I had never seen this episode before. I've not seen The Return, so I'm watching it for the first time. And I will say a little bit of the impact was dull just because I knew this episode was coming.
Yeah.
I can imagine that, like, if you were watching for the first time, the shock of just like, what are we doing? Once like we zoom into that. But it was still pretty incredible. And my one big takeaway was I just thought it was amazing. 2 things, actually. One, that we were seeing this on like pretty mainstream television. Like this was Showtime, you know. I mean, it was still pay cable, but it was still like this is supposed to be mass consumption, you know. Like, and the other thing I thought was amazing. It had a lot of Eraserhead vibes to it, and I just thought it was great that like this amazing director David Lynch. He's like, oh, he still had one more just. I'm gonna fuck your heads up like in them, and he unleashed it. It was amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, and it's I'll get to this in a second, but there's some like style stuff they do, and specifically this episode that I think is really interesting in terms of like how they shoot it. Because honestly, my favorite sequence is the last sequence. Back in the desert, 11 years later, one of the evil eggs we saw earlier hatches into a bug. I was wondering, like, who do we think this little girl is? We get introduced to a young girl and a boy. The boy's not really important, but the girl becomes important in these sequences. And I always took it to be supposed to be Sarah Palmer, partially because of things that happen later, and that maybe the bug was like a way for the Black Lodge. It was like a counter response to the the Bob Ball begot the Lorb, which got the bug. But I know y'all sort of interpret it more as like that was maybe Bob's mom.
That's how I
like
took it.
Yeah, definitely more. Because it's the whole thing. I feel like it was just the birth of Bob is this whole moment that we're in now.
What do you think about that, Jason?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to think about it more to I did think that the I understand the mother mother of Bob or whatever interpretation, because I do think that this is specifically like the way that this evil is being permanently added to the world. But yeah, I hadn't considered.
I don't know if the timeline works out if it's supposed to be Bob's mom, because she's like a 12-year-old girl or whatever the fuck, or 15.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I don't think it's Bob's mom so much as it's like, this is all right. How is humanity infected by this, and this is like just a permanent implant, not necessarily Bob, but just this evil reach. The
woodsmen descend and fuck with a car. That's when you get the famous "got a light." This is basically a cryptid encounter. Like, like people, like there are so many UFO encounters that are probably similar to how these people would describe it, where they like drove through somewhere and like they weren't sure what was going on, and then they drove off and it was like an hour later probably. That's what I assume. And then we get this big last sequence. I think one of my favorite things about this episode is that before this, we've had a very specific visual style throughout the entire rest of the show. I mean, there's been some breaks from it a little bit when we're in like the Black Lodge to a certain degree, but even then, it's not that different from outside the Black Lodge in terms of the types of shots we're getting, the compositions, and also the effects in terms of like how simple the computer effects are. And then suddenly at the end of this episode, we get this like pretty like really good looking CGI bug, and we get all these like very modern shots. When My Prayer starts, we're getting like a dolly track, and we're getting these close-ups on all these different things, and we just don't get that like, and especially anywhere before, and I don't think anywhere afterwards in the show. And I think, to me, that's the reason. That's what I love about this episode. And even the middle parts have this with the experimental stuff similarly are so different from everything else in the show. And it just really feels like the last sequence especially just feels like him really flexing, like, yeah, I could do something that's like normal and fun and exciting, where like where like cameras are moving around and pop music is playing and people are getting their heads crushed or whatever. But I'm only going to give that to you for like 5 minutes, and it's going to be the best part of the show.
That's not why I'm here.
Yeah. But yeah. I love this sequence. My Prayer, the song by the Platters, starts playing. Everyone in town is listening. Woodsman comes into the radio station and starts fucking everyone up. He takes over the mic, as seen behind me, and says, "This is the water, and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes and dark within," which over and over again, which puts everyone into town asleep, including the girl, and the bug enters in her mouth. And then the woodsman wanders off into the desert, and we hear a horse, and that's the end of the episode. Yeah, that's part 8.
What a ride!
That was my ride.
I love the like timeline scrubbing effect that happens in that one section with the woodsman.
Yeah.
Like there's just a lot of like film things in this episode in general.
Well, and it's cool, like the way because we'd already gotten with the backwards stuff with the Black Lodge originally, but it's cool. Like in this series, we see a couple of different new ways that he's sort of like maybe other dimensions or like side dimensions where it's like our perception is like not entirely on the level of whatever is going on here. And so showing things sort of abstracted in that way, I think is really cool, to get across like how weird that shit would actually be if we saw it. Because it's it's like shit beyond our fucking comprehension. It's like it's the flat world thing. Do you know about that? Where it's like the shapes, and they live in a world of shapes, and then a ball bounces, and so like a circle appears and disappears, and they're like, what the fuck? And they just like can't even deal with it. And it feels like the same thing. It's like Lynch is kind of doing like forcing our own perception of how these scenes are executed into like a kind of abstracted way to emulate that. And then part 9. We got here. I got this behind
Which
me.
is kind of what the episode title should be called. It's like, all right, now here's part 9.
Oh yeah, here's part 9.
Yeah, totally.
Mr. C.
Well, that was weird.
Mr. C. Yeah. I do like that it just opens up with Mr. C walking down the road. Like, that was weird. Glad that's over. We see him ramble on down the road to Tim Roth and Jennifer Jason Leigh, Hutch and Chantel. He texts someone around the dinner table. Conversation is lively. More Utz guy stuff. I get Hutch and Chantel are gonna take out the warden, and also like Hutch is a cuck or something. I don't know. Something's going on there. There's like a weird sexual relationship between the three of them. FBI, something is going on with Diane's phone. We not long after see that she is the one who got the text from Mr. C. Which, what could that mean? Who knows? Cooper flew the coop, so the feds head to Buckhorn. Well, that's not why they head to Buckhorn. They head to Buckhorn because of the Major Briggs stuff. But I guess there's no reason for them to be at the prison either. Albert and the mortician flirt. She found the Dougie Janie ring. We get this scene outside where they're smoking. And we get some info about what Matthew Lillard and his like librarian girlfriend were up to. They were into weird alternate dimension shit. They think because of the age of Garland's body that he must have traveled from 25 years ago, that he was hiding somewhere, some sort of pocket dimension shit was going on. But the Major was using Matthew Lillard to get numbers. He said Cooper before leaving. Something else, quote unquote, killed Ruth. I think it's really funny that Matthew Lillard was self-conscious about his performance here, because he's fucking great.
Yeah,
he's good enough at like portraying this like sort of desperate, just absolute despair that you end up getting like the social awkward anxiety thing of like being around someone who's like in deep despair, and like you it's like you have this visceral impact to like just his performance. He's just really good.
Over in Vegas, Dougie and Janie visit the cops, as does Bushnell, who understands that Dougie is being targeted. We find out that Dougie was sort of created, they think, as like an identity in 1997. Cops get prints off Dougie's cup. Dougie stares at an American flag and some shoes, but more importantly, an outlet. And Ike the Spike is caught. That fucker. Not gonna be running around killing anyone anytime soon. Twin Peaks, Lucy and Andy talk about furniture.
she does something very sweet for him.
Yeah, it is a sweet scene where they both compromise essentially. They both he's willing, and then she's also willing. And Bobby visits his mom to talk about his dad, and she knows exactly what this is all about because Garland foresaw this happening exactly, and he left them a metal tube. And I really love I love the Bobby stuff. Like, I don't know. I think I've talked many times on Twin Peaks Club about how Bobby's like one of my favorite characters. And I just really like what it just makes so much sense that this is where he would end up being, where he was on the original show, and not in like a direct pathway, you know, because you could see like worse versions having him be like a fuck up or something. But I love that he's just like part of the main sheriff's gang now with like Hawk and Truman and Andy and stuff.
Yeah, and I think Dana Ashbrook does a really good job with the acting. Mm-hmm. Like, it really feels like someone who, like, is coming to know his, and appreciate his father now that he's in a position where, like, he's a more reasonable person. Mm-hmm. And you see, like, you can really feel the love that he has for his dad, and the like how much he appreciates getting to see these new bits from him so many years later after he disappeared, and
still kind of maintaining like playing it as Bobby at the same time too, like the way
he doesn't seem like a different person so much as a
wiser
grown person, someone who's like done quite a bit of soul searching.
Yeah, like when he's like, "Oh, I know what to do with the metal tube," and they're like, "You're messing with us," and he kind of laughs, like, "No, like I know how to do it."
Yeah.
Chad has to move his lunch in a great scene. Here's how to open the metal tube. You throw it on the ground. it's that Lonely Island bit. But there's some like resonance stuff. It's like you have to listen to it, and then when it stops ringing, throw it again. And there's some messages from Garland inside: a date, a place, Jackrabbit's Palace, a place in the woods that Bobby himself named as a kid. And we get a bit of the paper that we saw in the original series, and specifically it's cut out just Cooper, the two Coopers, which is also this thing he said before he disappeared, according to Matthew Lillard. And then we swerve off the sheriff's department and we start doing some horn stuff. We get reintroduced to Johnny Horn. I don't know if you recognize that's who that was supposed to be, Scott, but the guy who was like running through the house and like crashed his head into the wall, that's Audrey's brother.
Oh, okay.
It's Johnny, so to speak. Jerry is still stuck out in the woods. More Ben and Beverly. There's like a flirtation there. Even though Ben doesn't really want to do it. Presumably just because he's this is post original series Ben, not pre original series Ben, and so he's a he's not the best person in the world, but he's a much better person than he was, and presumably he, with age, became even more chill, I would assume.
I do genuinely love that this guy was just made the decision, I'm going to be a good guy.
Yeah.
and he did. It turns out he did.
Yep. I like that. I mean, I like that. Like, again, it's like, I was literally talking to my mom about this actually earlier, about how I think so many people have a real misconception of Lynch's work, that he's like this like pessimist, perhaps. Mm-hmm. And like he is such an optimist, and there's like so much hope in his work. Even with all the negative stuff. And and then up at the Roadhouse, some DJ plays while some lady with a rash talks to her friend. And then we end with that Au Revoir Simone song that I like so much. I mean, one of my favorite songs from the show. That's this collection of episodes. This
episode specifically felt like one of the most normal episodes of this series. Like, definitely, like, all right, we're going to bring you back down to earth after what you just experienced with episode 8.
Yeah. No, definitely. It does definitely, like, the show takes a couple of episodes early on to find its groove, and then 8 kind of diverts, and then the last couple kind of divert, but the rest of the show does kind of have this like groove, and formula is the wrong way to put it, because there's like this is a very mild spoiler, but like there's in an episode or two, there's only like one Dougie scene, and it's just like him playing catch with Sonny Jim in the yard for 2 seconds. And so like it diverts in certain ways, and like in certain episodes it'll choose to favor certain storylines over others. But in the sense of like it just sort of cutting around and giving us all this different stuff, it which feels a lot like what the original show was. I mean, that's how it is, a little structurally different, obviously, but like pretty similar to how the original show is structured, where we're just kind of cutting around and getting all these pieces of stories, which normally I fucking hate. It's like my least favorite type of TV storytelling, but they just do it so well here.
But even within that, like, it's the most normal, like, there's no like little weird David Lynch things, you know, no sweeping, or even like,
that's true.
Got hit, you know,
this scene's a little slow when it happens.
Probably like the closest, but like for the most part, this felt like a normal episode in the middle of a season of television. You know what I mean? Like, which I think is smart. I'm just like, you know, I understand we are going crazy places, but we also have to like ground this in some form of reality. And what's so great about Lynch is he can do both. Like you know, I'd watch a regular procedural, made by him.
Well, does anybody else have anything else they want to say about these episodes? I
think they're good television.
Yeah, fucking blast, man.
What's that around the corner? It looks like it's Connor's Wicked Games. It's sponsored by Chris Isaac. Every week, like Jigsaw, I like to play a little game. This week, the return of everyone's favorite Twin Peaks-based game. Owl Oil, all. This is a game we played in one of the very first ones. I don't think you were there yet, Jason, for this one. I'm going to read you something, and y'all tell me, is it A, a type of owl, B, a movie about oil, C, a type of awl, AWL, which is like a woodworking, fabric working tool, or D, the title of something missing the word all, ALL. 1 point for each correct answer. There's one catch, which is one of these is two things. If you guess one of them correctly on that one, you'll get 1 point. If you guess both, I'm going to give you 4 points. If you guess two on one, that is only one, and you get it half right, I'm going to give you half a point. And that's pretty much it. And I don't remember, I didn't actually review what I did last time, so some of these might be repeats. But if I don't remember, I know y'all won't remember.
Oh, I wrote them all down, so I can't.
Justin saved it just for this occasion.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So we're gonna start with you, Bri. This first one, ferruginous pygmy. Ferruginous pygmy.
I guess an owl. OWL. A.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm gonna say owl.
Jason?
Owl.
That is correct. A ferruginous pygmy is a type of owl. Scott, this is a shorter game. I was a little swamped this week. I was like, I wanted to revisit this one at some point. I was like, you know what? As good as this is the best time for it. Next one, Scott, just to excuse my slight laziness in reusing a theme from earlier. And Scott, the world is not enough.
Yes, that's a movie about.
Jason?
Yeah, I'll do B. Yeah, oil movie.
Bri?
Yeah, it sounds oily, like B.
That is incorrect. It's a James Bond movie, but it is.
Dude, I completely forgot.
The main conflict is about oil.
I was like, there's no all in it. I know it's not a cheese.
All right, Jason, that jazz.
That jazz? B.
Bri?
B is in David.
And Scott?
So D.
You said B, Jason?
Yeah, I said B.
It is not. It is D. It is All That Jazz, the Bob Fosse movie.
That's what I wanted to clarify because I was just like, I think I heard B.
Yeah.
Boy.
Oh yeah, I understand. Yeah, sorry. When you were saying the rules and stuff, my thing cut out, and so I thought all was like all of the above.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's missing.
Oh, okay.
Well, you know what, Jason?
No, it's no. It was my internet.
All right.
No problem.
Bri, Diamond.
I'm gonna say C and Owl.
Scott.
I'm thinking too. C.
Jason.
I'm gonna do A.
You should have gone with the others because that is indeed a type of owl. Owl. Owl.
I just feel like Daniel Plainville would be the only one who's like calling oil B some of these names. Like he'd be so into diamond. This is my diamond oil.
Scott, Pioneer.
Movie about oil.
Jason.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Movie about oil. B.
Brian.
B sounds good.
That is correct. It's like Norwegian or some bullshit. I defined some all the good ones I used up last time, like because I used giant last time, and that's like a great one because it sounds like it could be a type of owl. Next up is Jason. Elf. Elf.
I'm trying to remember if there's any oil in the movie Elf. I don't think there is. I'm gonna say Owl. A.
Bri.
Yeah, I would say A, Owl.
And Scott.
Owl. A.
That is in fact a type of owl.
Nice.
Scott, Olive.
I'm going to say all.
AWL.
Yeah.
Jason.
Yeah, C. Owl.
And Bri.
B is just about movies containing that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go with C.
Yeah, it's not all of the other reindeer that.
No, I was thinking because yeah.
I was thinking olive oil.
Well, that's where my brain was doing it. I was like
Popeye,
clarifying. I'm like, this is too easy. Yeah. And then both of you didn't say that, and I'm like, okay, I gotta clarify here.
Olive owl.
Oh yeah. No, it's not a type of oil. Yes, that could have been that. That was. I didn't even mean that as a trick, to be honest. I didn't even think about that till right now. Next up, I think we're gonna start.
Wait, what was the answer?
Oh, it was yeah. It's a tool. It's C. Next up, I think we're starting with Jason this time. Parasite.
Parasite. Oh boy.
Oh boy. I'm gonna need an answer.
Yeah, I'll just I don't know. So let's say B. Oil.
Bri.
Parasite, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say D. Ball.
Scott.
I'm gonna go with B.
It is in fact a movie about oil, not Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, but a early 2000s movie, some sort of horror thriller about it's like alien on a oil rig. apparently.
I suspected it was going to be one of those.
Yeah. I wonder how that plays out.
Yeah. Bri, this one is yours. Bard. Barred. Bard.
I kind of feel like it's an owl. I feel like I've heard that before. A owl.
Scott?
I was going to say a owl as well.
Jason?
Yeah, I'll go a owl.
That is all correct. And just to remind y'all, there is still one coming up that has 2 answers. And you can get extra points. Next one is Rise. Scott. Rise. R-I-S-E.
I'm going to say D, all.
Jason?
B, oil.
And Bri?
I'm going to say DL.
The D's have it. There is some TV show, some lawyer TV show called All Rise.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a TV show.
Yeah, I figured.
Thursday night, gotta check out All Rise
On CBS.
Exactly.
Right after. Oh.
Jason, Scratch.
Scratch, a owl.
Bri?
I'll say A owl. Yeah.
And Scott?
All right.
What was that again?
A owl.
Well, you're all wrong. You're thinking about a screech owl. A scratch
That's
owl,
what it was.
AWL, is a type of woodworking tool.
Dang it.
Yeah,
I was thinking screech.
Bri, Boreal. Boreal. Boreal.
I feel like that's A owl.
Scott?
Yeah, that one sounds like an owl.
Jason?
Yeah, that's an owl.
That is all correct. Scott, Proteus. Proteus. Proteus.
I'm going to say C.
All. Jason?
B, oil.
And Bri?
You said B oil.
Well, Bri and Jason, you get 1 point. You could have gotten 3 more points if you had also guessed that it was a type of owl, because it is both. It is a type of owl, and it is a movie about oil, who I did not look up before this, so I don't have any information about it. Anyways, next up, we got 2 left. And it really is, like, the score, it's 11-11 and 9 right now. So,
9/11.
yeah, well, yeah. Well, yeah, 9-11-11.
It's even worse this time.
9-11 squared.
My God.
I think we were on Jason. We skipped someone at some point. Not for points, but I did the order wrong at
I
some
think we
point.
skipped Brian.
Yeah, but I think it's fine. Jason, snub-nosed. Snub-nose, not snub-nosed. Snub-nose.
Snub-nose. See, that sounds a lot like an owl. But owls don't have noses, so C, owl.
Bri?
Let's say C. C is in Charlie. Yeah.
And Scott?
I will also say C. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, Brian, Scott. You guys tied. Well, no, wait. There's one more. Sorry. Right now, everyone's it's 12-12 and 10 now. And this is the last one. We're gonna start with you, Bri. Egiant. E-G-I-A-N-T. Egiant.
I guess I'll say A owl.
Scott?
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah, A.
And Jason?
Yeah, I'll guess a owl.
Well, I might as well have announced it. That is Allegiant, the Divergent sequel.
That I couldn't even think of that as a word. I was just like,
Yeah.
some science guy named the bird that shit.
But Bri, Scott, gold medals and a silver medal for you, Jason, because of the way I do ties. So no one even got a bronze medal. Everyone's a winner. Everyone's a winner today.
Nice.
I like it.
Scott, do you have your bit?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's go over to Scott.
All right. Welcome to Scott's Comic Corner, brought to you by Eric Clapton and KBJK, New Mexico's top golden oldie station. We need a new night staff. This week, actually last week, what came out was issue 2 of One World Under Doom. Doom's still under control of the world, and in this issue, he talks to Valt about what his plans are. I really like this issue. I liked it was smaller in scale than the first issue when there was all out attack. It's mostly just Doom trying to explain his plans to Valerie Richards. For those that don't know, he is her godfather, and I like their connection. They truly love each other and they truly respect each other. Mm-hmm. And his argument. It's still, we have not seen the other shoe drop. We haven't seen why this is a bad thing. Obviously, Doom's a villain, and a global dictator is a villain. Is a issue. But he talks about how yes, Val, you're against anarchy, right? Anarchy for a country to run on that way wouldn't work. So why nations is anarchy okay? And each nation is going after its own individual thing. Under me, we're all going under the same rule. So it's pretty good. And it ends on a cliffhanger. He starts to fuck up Ben, which leads us to this issue of Fantastic Four, or as it's now known, Fantastic 3.
Oh no.
Oh geez.
It's not any cheaper, by the way. We're getting 25% less Fantastic, but they're still charging the same price. Also written by Ryan North. I've not got a chance to check it out, but it's starting to, I'd say if you're going to read the One World Under Doom, there's a whole bunch of side stories going on. There's Red Hulk, there's Thunderbolts, but of all of them, I would say probably the Fantastic Four is the one to read, especially. It's written by the same guy, Ryan North, and they're the ones who are most affected by Doom being in control. So, I haven't got a chance to check it out, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Nice.
Also, in the world of crossovers, if you've been reading X-Men, all this month has been Mutant Manhunt. Charles Xavier, who has not had a big role to play in the From the Ashes storyline. He's been arrested and in jail for most of the time, but he broke out, and his escape crossed all the X storylines: Uncanny, Storm, X-Men, X-Force, and
Exceptional.
Yeah, well, Exceptional X-Men was interesting. It was a called Collateral Damage, which is just somebody mentioned he escaped. If you don't have to read that one. The other one was NYX, actually. Okay. And each issue kind of pushes the story along. I'd say the middle two were my favorite, which was X-Men and NYX. I thought the the X-Men and X Factor one was especially good. It was X-Men versus X Factor, and I thought it did just a really good job of showing off each character, how just the tone of that book. Previously, it was Storm versus X-Men in X-Men, and that was a really serious fight. But when we got to X Factor, it was more of a jokey fight. Beast says, listen, guys, there's no reason to fight. And he doesn't mean that in a, let's be peaceful way. He means it in we're the X-Men, you're the X-Force. We are going to win. There is no reason to fight. And it was just a lot of fun. So this is a one-off. It's part 7 to the storyline. Check it out. It's written by Gail Simone. I've liked her take on. She's been writing Uncanny X-Men. I really enjoyed it. So check that out. Then quickly moving on to DC, the big event. If you're a Batman fan, Hush 2 begins. If you're familiar, Hush was a big storyline. Came out almost 20 years ago. But same team, Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee, doing the artwork. It's been a while since I read Hush, so obviously I had to pick up the paperback when I went there. I do have the original run when it came out, nice. But I'm pretty sure I have that back at home in Wisconsin, so I'm going to pick that up. I'm really excited. I like that original storyline, and I'll be curious to see what they do to bring the character back and bring how this plays as a sequel 20 years later.
Yeah. No, I always liked. I I have that paperback too and whenever back in the day before my dog named Batman died, if he was being loud, I would get it out and be like, Batman, hush. But anyone else, Scott? I love my thinking of the genocide, Palestine, Congo, Siena, everywhere else. I don't have anything else to shout out because, like I said, I've been doing great. No problems at all. So, anything you all want to shout out?
I just saw Mickey 17. I know we're going to be talking about that more Bond Johnson and stuff later, but yeah, good stuff. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Glad
the next
you liked
episode in like a week or two is going to be Bong Hits featuring Mickey 17. So, it'll be cool.
And Brian and I saw. I think you saw it too. Black Bag.
I still haven't yet. I need to catch it.
Lots of fun. Lots of just really. It feels, it's Soderbergh in like Ocean's 11 mode.
Nice.
Totally.
Just like a really well done, not exactly a heist, but a twist, because it's spies, and breezy, but not.
It's the pocket he does just so well. Like it's effortless for him.
Yeah, and like deceptively, where it's like he makes it look so easy, but clearly these movies are not easy to make.
Mm-hmm.
And Fassbender and Kate Blanchett are amazing, both together. I love them as a couple. Like couple goals,
absolutely,
100%.
Totally.
But
that's my new favorite couple of the year for sure.
It felt to me like the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of wished it was.
I thought of the same thing. Funnily enough, yeah.
I like the thinking man's
show.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Totally. Yeah.
That's a great way to describe it.
But yeah, well, Twin Peaks Club will return in, probably like late April, early May with the next 5 parts, 10 through 14 of the return. I want to thank Brian here for composing our outro. Next episode, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be Bong Hits featuring Mickey 17, and we're going to talk about Bong Joon-ho movies. I've been catching up. I think I'm going to be able to catch up. The only one I don't know if I'm going to have time to watch, because my friend who I've been watching them is like, she's like, I don't want to rewatch Okja, and so I was like, okay, well, she's like, too sad.
I laughed because Okja was like, I watched Poker Face, and it was like a. Do you remember? I know you watched it, Connor. It was like that one with the barbecue place.
Yeah.
Where like he gave up being a barbecue pit master because he watched Okja.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's funny. Follow us, Cinema Curse 666 on TikTok and Instagram. Follow us on YouTube. Smash that like button, like and subscribe. Share this with your friends. Share this episode with your local peanut sweeper. I think that's gonna be it for now. So bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.